for this NedTalks, I'm delighted to have with me Kevin Gillen, who's a market executive for Synovus, who I've known for a number of years. And I think a lot about what great sales managers do. Some people think great sales managers are people who make the numbers. Kevin's done that throughout his career. But great sales managers also develop people, and they do it using training, and they do it using tools. And Kevin, in my experience, has been a great sales manager in that he's helped his team members get better. So one of the things that I was curious about was having a brief discussion with Kevin about how he integrates CRM into his routines as a sales manager. So Kevin, I'm just curious, when was the first exposure you had over the course of your career, which is a long one in banking, to a CRM system?
Yeah, it goes 43 years, and then I had a hiatus outside the financial services industry, a completely different vertical. But I would say, I mean, obviously technology has advanced quite a bit, but probably 20 years ago, and clearly integration with other platforms today has advanced incredibly to make the salespeople or the bankers, to be as proficient as possible. But I've been a student of this for a long time. It really spanned between retail, small business, commercial, residential mortgage, a whole host of different lines of business.
So you made a comment, and I'm curious about following up on it. You did have a sabbatical from banking after a long career with TD and executive management roles. And it was a role that had more of a sales focus for you as an individual contributor. And I'm guessing you learned some things about CRM there.
I most certainly did. So I made that move into a completely different vertical. So there was a learning curve there, but I mean, it was a global company. It was like headset on 10 hours a day. But what was interesting, and it's the same concept that I was taught and that I practice. It was mindset, it was behavior, and it was measuring activity and aligning your behaviors and activity to really support whatever the objectives are or whatever your goals are. So when I look back at that, and it was a little bit of a slap in the face, or cold water thrown in the face, as to what were the things that got measured. And when that report was sent out to the international sales force every Friday afternoon, there was no hiding behind it. So we measured things like speed to answer, incoming calls, outgoing calls, duration of calls, follow-up calls, intervals of calls. So if you were calling a prospect, was it the second call, the third call? Was this second call 4 days after your first call? It measured electronic communication. It was a very, very robust, and it was all about activity. Did you have the activity that was eventually going to get you to the productivity that you're being measured on?
So I imagine from that, as you move back into a leadership role in banking, you took some very specific things away from that experience. What would you say were the keys that you brought with you as having used CRM as a salesperson?
Yeah, so I would say what I was taught long time ago, early in my career as a producer, and I was the beneficiary of some terrific mentors and sponsors, great sales program for which you were a big contributor to that, to build out that mindset. And I go back to activity and behaviors, being organized. When I look at what we do today, so how do I parlay what I've learned now as a manager? It is our book of record. Every customer, every prospect contact, every communication gets captured and recorded. It is in our culture, our sales culture here. So things like loans, fees, deposits, merchant services, treasury management, they're tracked, they're aged, and they're also provided a probability of closing. Incoming and outgoing referrals are tracked for every business partner. Customer COA and prospect calls and communications are tracked. Call mix is captured and reported as a percent of prospect calls. Very important. You could have a banker with no portfolio or a small portfolio. Obviously, their call mix is going to be very different. You could have a banker that maybe their production isn't where it needs to be, or their pipeline's not great. Obviously, call mix has to come into that. So that's going to be individual coaching. We capture weekly, monthly, quarterly, and then the annual loan fees, deposit production. That also includes the source of where the business comes from and actually the loan types. And then we leverage our CRM system, to capture the data. We leverage analytics and drive campaigns. And mission critical is the integration with the other platforms, which is a huge time saver for efficient use of our bankers. But I go back to I would say one of the standing principles. It is mission critical. The sales manager has got to have a firm and solid understanding of that CRM system. They have to use it every day. And I would say based on the CRM capability, when you think about it, there should rarely be a weekly or monthly sales meeting where the sales manager is hosting, where the team members are asked to come to a meeting with a prepared report. It's just not necessary. There's so much extensive information and data that's available. And the teams that I manage, they come to none of the sales meetings with reports in hand.
So part of what you've introduced in your routines and the cadence of your sales management is this idea that CRM is going to be not something that is out there. CRM is an integral part of whether it's a sales meeting or a one-on-one coaching session. Is that an accurate summary of?
It is, and they quickly realize the importance of the use, and we try to make it as easy as possible. The other thing that's just incredible is, we have full integration with this. You can be in your car, you can record your call, your call. You can do research. You can pull up your pre-call planners. It's got a full contact piece in there. I mean, it can't be any more convenient. But to your point, it has to be used. Now, because of its capability and it's the frequency of pushing out, your typical stack ranking reports, it doesn't take long for a banker to realize that the placement on the stack ranking may not be looking so great for a pure lack of use. I would say a subtle driver from a behavioral perspective is we do have a percentage of weighting towards utilizing tools and resources, including the CRM system, that's captured and rated within the annual performance appraisal and review process that we conduct here. So I go back to it is the culture here for sure.
Well, and that's something that I think you've done a lot of recruiting over the last several years from a lot of different organizations. Would you find that that's the norm in some of the other banks, including some of the largest banks where you've recruited people?
Yeah, so I worked for two terrific, really large banks. I don't think they're to the extent that we use it today. I think after we go through the acclimation period, the onboarding with our new bankers that come to us, and I think if you asked them today, they would tell you access to tools and resources are second to none. They've never been able to see before to help them best service their customers and help them to be successful in prospecting.
Mm-hmm. So I am interested in maybe a little deeper insight from you about how you would incorporate CRM, say in a one-on-one coaching conversation that you might have with one of your team members.
Sure. So, and the beauty about the one-on-one, so the cadence we have would be Monday morning sales meetings, 9 to 10, all sales managers, we're live on the screen. Sometimes I'll hold them live in person as I move around to the different offices in the state. And then we have select business partners at these meetings that are key business partners for which we receive and send out referrals to them. And in that report is a tremendous amount of information that's captured that really is is a look back on the week we just closed, as well as a look forward on the week. So the report is front and center for everybody. I do it every weekend. It takes me 1 hour. That's the beauty about having such a great CRM system. And again, the bankers are not prepared. They're coming with 3 things to be prepared for. And we talk about best practices, and we talk about key names on prospects, and we share about tactics and what have you. But the data in there is capturing activity, it's capturing call mix, it's capturing referrals out, it's capturing pipeline, it's capturing closed business, it's capturing forecasts. I mean, it is typically a 9 or a 10 slide, 10-page report that is front and center, and it's fresh for for everybody to see. The other thing that we did is, considering the environment we're working in today, strained economic conditions, heightened interest rates, inverted yield curve, challenges in access to credit, and how you fund loans. Our focus is on core deposits. Our focus on new to bank relationships and deepening relationships and driving non-interest income. So we've really put the pedal to the metal on prospecting. And the beauty about the CRM system is we've been able to stand up a real-time, by the minute dashboard that every banker has, that they can see their own productivity and their peers, that measures activity and behaviors by the hour, by the day, by the week, by the month, by the quarter, and by the year. And there's no surprise, those activities that are at the top of the scale, that closed business and the pipelines are commensurate with that level of activity.
So when you move from a weekly sales meeting to the one-on-one coaching, I imagine that you're really drilling down very as deep as you need to with the individuals.
Absolutely. So our cadence is the Monday morning meetings. Every month we publish which we refer to as a coaching scorecard. That's an individual scorecard. It also gives ranking both on division and corporate. And then the bank has furnished a wonderful tool. It's a scorecard for every banker, and they see all the current information year to date on all revenue production for their entire activity. That's real time, and that gets updated literally by the day. On the coaching sessions, the one-on-ones, we do quarterly, really deep dives there. That is when we're taking the reports, and then we're literally going into the CRM system, and we're looking at, say, core prospect calls or core customer calls, and we're really looking deep to see how aggressive are you? What are your tactics that you've utilized? What campaigns are you leveraging? What's the number of follow-up calls? What's the intervals of the calls? Are you leveraging senior management or board members or any other centers of influence? So all of that information, and as a sales manager, you can tell pretty quickly how the banker is utilizing and leveraging all those tools and resources that are embedded in the CRM system.
So I am curious. You try to make it as easy for your bankers to use the CRM as possible. You're giving them different ways they can input information. What would be sort of a ballpark number? How much time would you guess an individual RM spends in the CRM system?
So when you think, I mean, they've got to enter their calls in there. The beauty is, the interaction with everything. So it's customer calls, it's prospect calls. They're entering in their pipeline information, but they're in there frequently. Now, the entries themselves, because the manner in which the CRM system is constructed, it takes minimal amount of time to enter any information. I mean, I do it myself. If I'm going to go on a customer call by myself or a prospect call, I can be in and out, enter all the information with pretty detailed within 2 to 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. But the point being is, you don't want to let this go. So I always say, good best practice is right after that call, enter it into the system at least no later by end of day, if not when you get into your car on the mobile app.
So talk to me a little bit. You alluded to the fact that in some of your sales meetings, you're integrating partners. And there's no question about today in the environment that we're in, treasury management partners are critical, but wealth management partners are critical. How does the engagement of CRM sort of cut across lines of business?
Yeah, so it's all integrated with all our lines of business, and those partners would be our wealth, our merchant, and our treasury manager. They're the standard in here. So a portion of the sales meeting is each of those folks reporting out on the status updates of the referrals they have received, which is great because you all know as a salesperson, there's nothing more aggravating or frustrating, I should say, that you make a referral and you don't know what the status is. So at a bare minimum, the team is getting updates at least once a week. And where's that information coming from? It's the same discipline our partners have that we do, and it's the input they're putting into their CRM. When I say their CRM, we're all operating off the same platform, but their input.
Kevin, this is really fascinating, and discipline cuts through all of the conversations we've had here. What would you say, in terms of your sort of takeaways from having been a sales manager now using a very robust CRM system? What are your sort of lessons learned or best practices for other sales managers?
Yeah, great question. And I said this one component before. As a sales manager, you have to be an active user. It's so apparent to your team if you're not. You need to understand its capabilities. I am kind of on speed dial with our Salesforce administrator. The other beauty about that is if you know it, you can really create some pretty nifty reporting and dashboards. Instill a disciplined, consistent use by the team members with timely and accurate information. When I interview a banker and then when we onboard them, we spend an enormous amount of time on the tools and resources and the CRM system to get them to understand how integrated everything is and how it drives everything we do. Their input drives all the reporting, stack ranking, dashboards, pipeline. So the banker really needs to understand that they own it. And as I said before, from the performance plan and review process, behavioral drivers, they do understand that there is a significant weighting given to the activity that's captured from a customer relationship and sales activity that gets measured from the CRM use and input.
I think those are great messages for any bank sales manager, and I appreciate your opening the kimono here a little bit in terms of how you utilize it. And I think, for the record, we didn't mention the name of the CRM system that Kevin is using, but I don't think that's terribly relevant. Whatever system you're using has a lot of the capabilities that Kevin is taking advantage of, but really it's how sales managers and executives in an organization choose to use it. It's one of the tools that high-performing sales teams like the ones that Kevin has managed and is currently managing stand out in a very crowded banking landscape. So, Kevin, thank you for spending time here. I appreciate the coaching pointers on this NedTalks.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity, Ned.